Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth in the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case, a decently modest proposal. Hey you! Yes, you, reading this story. Don't worry, this isn't some piece of meta-fiction. I'm dictating what I say to a gracious volunteer who will post it for me. I've got an offer for you. And no, not like a door-to-door salesman peddling dull kitchen knives or what have you. You see, my offer is as genuine as a baby's first laugh. My name is Donald Basemore Cooper. Quite a mouthful, I know. My friends call me Donnie, DB, Coop, Basement, and so on. Take your pick. They're like paint samples. But the people I do business with, oh, they call me a lifesaver. Believe it or not, old Donnie here knows a thing or two about you. I'd wager 9 out of 10 of the people reading this are sitting down. Maybe you're lucky, number 10 though, standing up at work, browsing your phone, blessed enough to have clicked this offer. Maybe your job doesn't let you sit down like a cashier or that guy who takes the stubs off movie tickets. Regardless, whether you're sitting or standing, you'll realize that your feet probably hurt. Maybe a little, maybe a lot. Maybe sitting down is just a temporary oasis from the desert of swollen soles and pained pinky toes. But we've all been there. We all know what it's like to have our dogs barking. Think about it. From the moment you were born, your mommy or your daddy had a countdown going for the day you'd take your first steps. Maybe they even filmed it, a joyous occasion to look back on. But was it really? Because after that, you might have found walking fun for a year or two. Then you might have graduated to running, sweating off the sugar highs you'd get from your candies and such. But at some point, I'm confident walking and running just became, vanilla, plain and simple, boring even. Hell, I'm taking it one proverbial step further and guessing it's just plain tiring too. Now, as an adult, say you can't find a parking space close to where you need to go. Now you gotta walk. Or maybe the bus station isn't that close to where you work. We haven't exactly designed cities around those of us without cars. Maybe your job keeps you on your toes. Go run this. Go clean this. Go serve that table of assholes their food, knowing they won't tip you. More walking, and even if you try and relax on a weekend, guess what? How long can you last until you go shopping at a store, or even a mega shopping center, floor after floor, dedicated to glorious capitalism? a shrine to enjoyment and consumerism. But your feet will have hell to pay. And I know I can hear some of you thinking to yourselves, but Donnie, I like to walk, run, and jog. Hell, I eat marathons for breakfast. I hear you. I promise you still gotta listen to my offer. You see, why do we do those things? If you ask me, it boils down to 3 different reasons. First reason, maybe you like an early morning stroll through the woods because you gotta de-stress. It's calming, serene, reminds you of your mama's womb. I get that. But it can't be the only way you know how to de-stress. I'm sure your buddies, the bed and the couch, would like to chime in and remind you how relaxing they are. And if you still want to be in nature, watch a bird or 2. Park benches are right there, singing a siren song to rest your feet. Second reason, weight loss. You want to be sexy. You want to look thin. You gotta shave those pounds off of you. But I'm sorry to say, it's really all a sham. Society made up these rules as to who counts as hot, who gets to be on the big screens and such. They want you to look thin because there's more money for them in looking thin. Exercise machines, designer clothes, beauty products, all that costs way more than a bag of chips and cookie dough, if you know what I'm saying. And then they have the gall to make food so tasty, yet so fattening, to keep this endless cycle going. You pay money to get thin, only to pay money to get fattened again. That's the secret to beauty. It's just money wearing a mask. Don't fall for it. Live how you want. Don't worry about running to get thin. Reason the third. Maybe you run for sport. You know, it happens. You could have had a lazy eye and couldn't hit or throw a ball right. But boy, howdy, you sure could run like hell in a straight line. Now, your pal Coop here wasn't much of an athlete. Most of my running came from evading the school bullies, who are now, hopefully, adult has-beens and burnouts. But that spirit of competition is a wonderful thing. It's food for the heart and soul. But it won't last. Sooner or later, your body gives out, and you'll just be yearning for the glory days, like a college alum still visiting their frat house on homecoming. You can't run forever, so you see where I'm coming from now? Almost everyone reading this declaration of mine is going to tragically fall victim to one day being so pained, so hurt, so egregiously tired, all from walking. Biologically speaking, we aren't even designed to be standing up straight for so long. Our spines are an affront to God, if anything. So, what do we do? What is Mr. Basemore Cooper here leading up to? What is my offer to you, my dear reader? Well, let me tell you a story. Growing up, my grandfather, or my Boompa, as I called him, lived on his own. He'd come visit me, walking up the 3 stone steps to my house, back and knee pains the whole time. Of course, I didn't know at the time how much he hurt. He was just Boompa to me, so friendly, so kind, bringing over an apple or 2 to help keep the doctor away for me, you know? As a kid, I'd run around the house or the yard, trying to play with Boompa, never realizing how he struggled to catch up. Then, inside, I'd jump on his lap as he sought relief on our couch. He's the one who taught me my dogs are barking instead of saying my feet hurt. Hell, he'd put a spin on it with, the whole pound is a barking, Donnie, and then he'd leave to go home to his apartment, up several flights of stairs, all by himself. And I'd beg him to stay. Please, Boompa, I want to play every day. And I'd wonder why my parents were just letting him go off by himself. In retrospect, it's even worse. They had to have known his legs were hurting, but they basically kicked him out into the cold every time he finished visiting. Why couldn't Boompa just live with us? Would it really have been that hard? Don't you get ahead of yourselves, dear readers. There isn't some skeleton in Boompa's closet. No sins of the grandfather. No wicked reason why baby Donald couldn't see him every day. The real reason? Independence. As long as he could walk, he insisted on taking care of himself, living on his own, and thus seeing me only 12 times a year. Tragic, right? Your hearts must be breaking. Boo-hoo for Donnie. Nah, I say get that I was still lucky to even have Boompa. But you know who wasn't lucky? Boompa. Knees sore, feet aching. A lifetime of walking amounting to chronic pain. It really shouldn't be a surprise that he couldn't cross the street at a normal speed. So if you think about the number of stupid people combined with the number of impatient people in this country, it was really only a matter of time. Boompa couldn't possibly react fast enough to that car. Don't grab your tissues and start weeping. He lived. It's actually funny how tires crushing your bones, grinding your flesh, and spilling your blood across the pavement isn't enough to kill you sometimes. I wonder if Boompa found it funny too, lying there, waiting for the ambulance, dragging himself away from the mangled remains of his legs. Just a clean cut, the kind that would make a butcher blush with how precise it was. Just like that. No more legs and feet to hurt. Just like that. Boompa was at home. My home. To live with us. I could talk to him all day. My parents would take care of him, and he'd never have to walk again in his wheelchair. I couldn't be happier that he lived out the last few years of his life with us, fully provided for, and loved. I'm sure he'd agree. I'll have to ask him when I go to heaven. And we could have had all that for longer if he had just gotten rid of his legs sooner. Don't you think? What I'm proposing is a free service, all done by me on the house, to give yourself the same kind of life Boompa had at the end. Fully taken care of, free from the stress of walking. You'll find new ways to relax, new games to play to pass the time. And losing weight? Well, a leg is a little under a fifth of your weight. So losing both? You're talking upwards of 50 pounds off, all at once. Way more efficient that exercise ever could be. Come on. Working out is hell. All the sweat and the pains and finding time to do it. I'm telling you, my offer is way better than that. You might be hesitant because you don't have a spare wheelchair lying around. No worries. Part of the service is that I'll help you procure one suited just to your needs. What about housing? Making sure you can still move around. Your boy Donnie is right here. We can rearrange your house to be a more wheelchair-friendly space. What's that? Your job? Going out in public? Right now, I'm working on pushing the government to pass legislature to increase disability pay. Most public places have to be wheelchair accessible already, but with an increase to monthly payments, you'll have more than enough free money to use on both living and entertainment. You'll see, it really won't be a big deal to use ride-sharing services once you have the money from selling your car. How is the procedure done? Well, there are too many hoops to jump through to doing this in a hospital. God forbid us red-blooded Americans exercising the freedom we've been promised. I'll gladly come to your house instead. Just give me your address, and we'll pick a time that works best for you. Maybe you want the kids out of the house. Maybe you've been looking for an excuse to get off of work on a Monday. Certainly won't be going back to that job after we're done. I've got my bag of tools with me here. We've got some chloroform here, a new set of rags, some ropes too. I find it decreases the squirming if you happen to wake up. You don't have to worry about carpet stains either. I'll throw down a tarp. We could even set you up in bed for maximum comfort as well. Then you've got your choice of tool. The chainsaw is a wonderful choice for those horror fanatics out there. Plus, the noise will drown out any screaming that might occur. Again, if you wake up. But maybe you want quick and painless, or at least as painless as possible. That's where the elegant Japanese katana comes in, fully capable of slicing through bone. Maybe you want to savor the moment you give into a lifetime of relaxation and sitting. Or maybe you find your jollies from a little bit of pain here and there. No judgment here. But I've still got my trusty hacksaw here, still good to go from the first time I did this procedure. Now the forums will tell you that a bone saw might cut better, but ignore that hogwash. With enough elbow grease and a can-do attitude, my hacksaw and I will easily get your legs on a one-way trip to Aruba. Never to bother you again. Don't you worry a hair on your pretty head. I know what I'm doing here. It's not my first rodeo. I've had plenty of satisfied customers in the past. It does take a little convincing, but if you met me in person, my pearly white smile would knock your socks off. Be warned, ladies, I'm quite the charmer. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up chit-chatting mid-procedure too. Why, yes, I'd love to take you out to dinner in your fine new wheelchair this Friday. I'll hold the door open for you and make sure you get home safe before I lift you and tuck you into bed. Nice and snug. Now, in full honesty, not everyone is fully on board with this procedure yet. But I really am doing people a huge favor here. The couple of times they hesitated to say yes didn't stop me from grabbing the old chloroform here. I remember this one gentleman, surely an upstanding and strong man, didn't hesitate to start crying and begging me to stop once he was tied down. Those tears reminded me a lot of myself when I used to cry when Boompa left. Oh, how things got better for me. And soon they'd get better for him too. In fact, this young gentleman typing this all out is my latest customer. You see, I'm not the best with computers, so we cut a deal. He could keep one of his legs if he helped me spread my word far and wide. So here we are. If only you could see him hobble, a little tear in his eye. There won't be any tears once he moves into his wheelchair, with my help, of course. I'm not a monster, after all. So folks, if you're interested in changing your life for the better, taking a stand against pain by sitting down permanently, then I'm your man. For Donald Basemore Cooper, call 555-NO-LEGS-FOR-ME. You want to be free? Call your pal DB and make sure you hold on to those legs once they're off you. Because I've got a great home recipe to share with you in the kitchen. The darkness. Darkness is upon us, Will. Throw me another log for the fire, would you? Father Beacon requested. There is no moon tonight, so we must remain vigilant at all times. On the morrow at daybreak, we shall continue our journey to the safety of Castle Divinity. I questioned not the decision to undertake a journey so late in the day. Father Beacon had successfully trapezed through the forest of Dean on several occasions. However, on each of those times, he had never had to camp in the woods after dark. So, it was surprising to May and our other traveling companion, Lord Benjamin Moore, that Father Beacon would choose to do so on the night of no moon. Now, this is important, Will, so listen carefully. You have first watch, so make sure you feed the flame. Never let it descend to ember state. Is that clear? Yes, Father, I reply. You are aware of the stories of these woods, yes? Indeed I am, Father, I acknowledge. But what exactly should I be aware of? I study Father Beacon as he unfurls a blanket to keep him warm while he sleeps. The stars twinkling above us in the clear night sky equates to a chilly evening. So a blanket tonight is a welcome cover, while the blazing fire lights and warms the small radius of our campsite. The creatures of the night, he replies after a long pause. The abominable. But for as long as you keep that fire burning bright, they will not venture forth from the shadows beyond our glowing pale. Do we have enough wood to burn? I innocently ask. Enough for my sleep, he replies. What after that? Pray that dawn comes before your last log is thrown onto the fire, he chillingly replies, or none of us will see the light again. Now, take a drink of water from my deer bladder. That should last you through the night. I'll keep it safe beside me. I bid a good night to you, Will. My life is in your hands. Make sure you stay awake. Your youthfulness should manage that. I shall, Father. As God is my witness, I will feed the flame's hunger for food. My pledge trails off into the darkness. As Father Beacon quickly succumbs to the exhaustion of this day's arduous long trek on bloated feet and ankles, balancing his heavy frame. Without encouragement, he quickly drops off into a deep sleep. To persuade the fire to throw out some extra heat, I poke at it with a small tree branch stripped bare of its leaves. There is no God, boy. Lord Moore's unsolicited opinion spits at me. We live through this night, and you will understand that, as I do. So, do not fail your duty. Are you not going to keep me company? I ask, hoping for some stimulus assistance to my lonely task. He declines to answer. I watch as Lord Moore produces a deerskin flask from his bedroll. Then, uncorking it, he takes a long swig, spilling drink down his bushy red beard. Catching my stare, he extends his arm and offers me a taste. Thank you, I graciously decline. But the only spirits I am allowed to consume are in prayer. My attempt at humor has the desired effect on Lord Moore, who chuckles out loud. The innocent wit of a child. How refreshing in such apprehensive surroundings. I am beyond the coming of age, I belligerently declare. 2 years past, I retort. Splendid, he congratulates me. Then, you are no commoner, I perceive. I am the son of a nobleman sent to mission on God's calling. And what of your king's calling, boy? If it is God's will, then I will serve accordingly. The shaking of Lord Moore's head and broad shoulders mocking me belie the inner machinations of what most would label a heretic. However, Lord Moore's reputation as the king's most trusted servant serves to silence any criticism, on risk of retribution. To the king, Ben Moore is an untouchable subject, granted immunity from libel and slander. However, there has been on several occasions. The king's trust in his friend put to the test, like when Lord Moore killed a monk in a monastery because the inebriated monk had physically accosted the daughter of Lord Moore's friend, the Earl of Lydney. It wasn't the killing of the monk that started tongues wagging. The dissent was primarily due to the shocked reaction caused by the monk being discovered in a small chapel of the monastery, nailed upside down naked to a large crucifix attached to a wall behind the altar, his entrails dangling like a butcher's sausage string, dripped coagulated blood that slowly drained into an overflowing silver chalice used for Sunday communion. When the king was informed of the atrocity, he summoned Lord Moore to his chambers and banished him for one single calendar year from Moore's own fiefdom. All rents in that period went directly to the crown. When the year was concluded, Lord Moore's rights and privileges were immediately restored, sparking whispers among the king's court of favoritism and privilege. To further add fuel to the tongue-wagging, the king pardoned Moore, then gifted him additional lands to add to his already handsome portfolio. There is only the king's will and the will of the people, Lord Moore gargled between swigs of mead. God, if he exists, is merely a spectator to the fallout of that mess he caused during those 7 days of boredom. If you have no faith, I point out, then does that also extend to the existence of the devil? I ask, in the self-interested attempt to keep his thoughts consciously working and awake. There are only devils in this world, boy. No single devil, but many walking amongst us. If you ever get to see what I have witnessed in my life, you will come to understand that evil is not supernatural. It is not the fallout of imaginary angels. It is solely a result of man's own lust and greed. I defeatedly watch Lord Moore adjust his knapsack as he prepares to rest. However, the night is still long, so I attempt to stir him from his approaching slumber. Are you going to kill another monk at Castle Divinity? I unashamedly ask. Perhaps I'll kill you, boy, if you interfere with my sleep any longer. I push my luck a little further and ask the unmentionable question. What did he do? The monk that you killed, what I killed him for, was not just out of retribution. He had a history of molestations against females and males alike. The final straw was just the last on a list of uncontrollable aberrations. The church protected him and confined him to the monastery's high walls. I made a pledge to a friend, and when Ben Moore pledges something, he delivers. His words trail off into slumbering mutterings of approaching dreams, leaving me alone in the waking world, in charge of the two men's safety. A faint snap of a twig emanating from the darkness grabs my attention. Poking at the fire, I resurrect a tall flame that widens the area of light. Then, without warning, the hairs on my arms stand up on end. I feel something or someone watching me from cloaked areas of the forest. "Who's there?" I call out. I look over to Father Beacon and then to Lord Moore, but they remain undisturbed, as if a spell has been cast upon them, incarcerating them in a form of sleep prison. "Don't be afraid," a female voice whispers from the edge of the light. "I mean you no harm. Quite the opposite," she clarifies. "I bring you an offering of everlasting pleasure." My eyes dart in the general direction of her voice, but it is not until she steps into the light that I can focus on her presence. Walking deliberately toward me, she is naked as the day I was born. Her shape is curvy, and her long hair manages to hide her modesty in the appropriate areas. To be exact, her long, fair hair is empathetically saving me from blushing my own modesty. "Tell me your deepest desire," she demands to know. "What doth a young buck like you want more than anything in this life?" "I want to serve God," I defensively reply. Her echoing laugh sees through my nervousness. After all, I am still of the male species, and she is divine, delectable, and attractively enchanting. Does the boy always answer for the man? I answer for myself, and I answer to God. "So naive," she disapprovingly states. "Where I come from, we only worship ourselves." Dropping to all fours, she assumes the gait of a four-legged animal, slowly swinging her hips as she approaches me. A stirring within creates a bead of perspiration to form over my brow. My mouth suddenly feels dry, creating a craving for refreshment. But Father Beacon holds the water satchel and is not within easy reach. Not that I can move, because I'm transfixed to my seated position, lost in two dreamlike, dark pools, drawing me deeper into the strange visitor's eyes. I try to muster a call to Lord Moore, but my tongue has somehow been silenced. "There's no need to wake him," she said, before resting her chin on my lap. "What I am about to do to you requires no audience." "Do?" I innocently ask, my vocal cords returning to normal operation. "What are you going to do?" My quivering trepidation seems to excite her, causing her to breathe deeply in through her nose as she rises to her feet, her unusually tall frame towering over me like a giant addressing a dwarf. "Innocent child," she hisses. "Why, I'm going to devour you." In the blink of one's eye, she transforms into the most hideous of creatures that nature has ever produced. Her hair, now solidifying into some form of sinew tissue, opens into a webbed membrane from behind her back. The ends resemble the tip of a thick, spiky holly leaf. Her face is now unrecognizable, looking more so like the skinless jaws of a forest wolf. Gone are the seductive eyes, replaced with fiery red slits of terror, focused entirely on an area below my right ear. I freeze in fear, unable to move, helpless to react, as her mouth opens wide, revealing pointy, sharp teeth throughout her salivating oral aperture. I say her, but there is no other label other than it to describe this hellish monster about to dine on me, tenderizing my face with each forced exhalation of foul air. I'm about to faint from the overwhelming fright when the creature suddenly jerks up in a howl-like stance as the tip of a long sword blade begins to protrude from its mouth. As reddish-brown liquid drips from its jaw onto my lap, the creature's head is abruptly severed from its shoulders with one swipe of the sword, causing an instant cacophony of screams and howls to cry out from the darkness surrounding me. Looking up, Lord Moore is standing above the decapitated corpse, wiping his blade clean with his cape. "What happened?" I croakily ask, as he throws a log onto the smoldering embers of the fire. "You fell asleep, boy, and the fire almost went out. But how?" "I was awake? Beacon, I presume. Did he give you any food earlier?" "No, just a drink of water from his pouch." "Why? You may have been an unwitting accomplice in the attempt on your life," Moore explains. "However, bigger game was the intended kill. You were just the bonus sacrifice. I was the prey." "You? Why, presumably, a revenge kill for my killing one of their brotherhood." "Do monks act out murderous deeds?" I asked, not thinking clearly. "Directly? No. But they are not shy of getting someone else to do their dirty work when necessary." I suddenly realize that Father Beacon is nowhere to be seen. Innocently believing that he must have panicked and ran when the beast attacked, I try to rally Lord Moore for a rescue mission. "We should look for Father Beacon," I loyally suggest, right before a blood-chilling scream rings throughout the forest, shaking me to my core. "No need." Lord Moore halts me as he gently restrains my worried reaction. "Payment for failure has been taken. All that matters now is that we keep the fire burning strong until daybreak, which shouldn't be too far away." "What was your business at Castle Divinity?" I probingly ask. "By King's order, I was to be Lord Protector for 3 months, as part of a penance for my deadly deed. Father Beacon was the emissary sent to deliver me to the castle. I hope and pray the king had no advance knowledge of what was planned." "What if he did?" I asked. "Then I would have to choose between justice and survival. However, killing a king is not always healthy for one's future." "You would kill a king?" "I would kill anyone that wronged me," Lord Moore bluntly replies, poking the fire for effect. I couldn't wipe the beast's image from my mind. Never have I encountered such a monstrosity. And I am curious, more than ever, for information. "What was that creature?" I ask. "Neither natural nor supernatural, nor a celestial creation or heavenly rejection. These woods are older than time itself. Who knows what lives here? whomever or whatever they are. Light seems to be their enemy, and darkness their domain. Since a boy, I recollect stories of the danger of journeying through here at night. Many from these lands that ignored the peril have disappeared, never to be heard from again. Their disappearances have always been after dusk, so I found the decision to start our journey so late in the day a very curious and somewhat suspicious undertaking. The reason now transparent, I added. Indeed, boy. It seems that a most peculiar but fragile alliance was made to prevent me from reaching my destination. The consequences of that failure already evident. Exhausted from the excitement leaving my senses, I sit huddled with Lord Moore around the fire, trying to make sense of it all, but secure in the faith that the dancing flames will provide extra protection from those in the surrounding darkness that continue to encircle us. As I stare into the hypnotic dance of hot flames jaggedly stabbing at the thin early morning air, a breaking ray of light in the sky catches my attention. Nervous though I am, I stand up in front of the fire and point toward its direction. Lord Moore, look! I exclaim. Aye, boy. He welcomingly acknowledges my sharp observation. As soon as that light tops the trees, we return to our homes, more the wiser and more the grateful to breathe in the fresh air of a new day. What about Castle Divinity? I ask. It will still be there, he replies, when I pay a surprise visit next time. Oh, unholy night! Iceland's winter festivities are a perfect excuse to feast and make merry, and I partake with an insatiable appetite. I adore the endless nights wandering abroad and relish chance encounters with hapless stragglers trudging home. They all laugh when I tell them carol singings not to my taste, and chuckle when I say choristers are delightful and sweet. But how their mirth dissolves as I envelop them in my cloak and whisper, "What a toothsome treat you are. You're good enough to eat." I despise summer, like all cold-blooded creatures, preferring a catatonic sleep to roasting in the sun. Every autumn, I anticipate the evening when Ingvar disturbs my estivation, and I return to a nocturnal lifestyle. He disinterrs my casket from the family plot every year during the first week of December. It's a tradition my loyal retainer has followed for years, just like his father, and his father's father, ad infinitum. It's impossible to find reliable help these days. And so, despite Ingvar's poor social skills, I re-employ his services annually. Ingvar obeys my written orders to the letter on the pain of death. If not in this life, then his neck. Thwack, crunch. My mind basks in a dream state when Ingvar invades my solitude, hacking through the icebound earth above. Crake, skreek. I hear the shovel scrape debris off the wooden lid. and his doleful voice murmuring a tuneless refrain. The unsettling melody stirs my clouded mind like a moorland breeze whistling through gnarled branches. Its clashing dissonances offend my refined musical sensibilities and cause my heart to quiver and contract. Lub, dub, lub, dub, lub, dub. My constricted arteries dilate as Ingvar wrenches at the coffin nails with his claw hammer. His frenzied efforts cause minor explosions in the darkness, dusting the threadbare silk lining with clouds of grit. As Ingvar prizes open the ancient pine lid, my sensitive eyeballs roll upwards, avoiding the moon's inquisitive gaze. My rib cage twitches in a violent spasm as wheezing lung sacs inhale clean air. I choke and splutter before coughing out stale fumes that rasp my withered throat like a rusty file. With each heartbeat, blood churns throughout my aching body, carrying oxygen to every cell. It's always the most painful part of my awakening. Pins and needles prickle each desiccated sinew, and every limb screams as it receives life-giving fluid. The blood returns to the heart after delivering oxygen, and my mind explodes with predatory thoughts anew. My throbbing heart sends the blood to lungs that strain hard to collect more air. I reflux and retch a pint of sticky phlegm from deep down. Ingvar is used to this unsightly reaction and tends to the detritus with a clean cloth. His caring touch is delicate and professional, and his face is unflinching. He lacks any sentiment. This is his business. Ingvar had strict instructions prior to my exhumation. He was to source a flask of fresh blood by whatever means necessary. The task never varies, but the source depends whereabouts I resume my existence. We're never in the same town twice, for obvious reasons. He's learned to adapt to my circumstances with undeniable efficiency. Ingvar has my best interests at heart, and he's also on the payroll. This winter season, he's moored our vessel in a quiet northwestern harbor outside Sudovik. It's an unassuming fishing town with a medical center and a venue for blood donors. Once on shore, he disguised himself and liberated a quart from their supply. It's a rich-looking concoction that will suffice for now. However, it's not the same as sinking my teeth into a warm jugular and slurping on the real deal. Ingvar steadies my quivering hands as I raise the glass container to my lips. I close my weary eyelids, and after a few sips, everything calms down. My sweaty palms dry out, and my prune-like fingers appear to elongate as my skin tightens. The sagging flesh under my jaw disappears, and my furrowed brow loses its careworn lines. At last, The throbbing pain behind my eyeballs dissipates, and my labored breathing settles into a regular rhythm. My once erratic heart beat chugs at a steady rate, and the queasiness in my stomach eases after a discharge of rancid gas. My rejuvenation is complete, and I rise from the coffin to assume my full height, like a magnificent butterfly, casting off its shriveled chrysalis and unfurling its wings before flight. I nod at my retainer, and he tips his forelock and bows. I acknowledge his endeavors with a satisfied smile and survey the snowbound nightscape, glistening like an ocean of diamonds under the moon's bashful glow. Ingvar wafts his left hand through the air, shepherding me towards the waiting Broham with his outstretched right arm. Two majestic black drays snort white plumes from flared nostrils beside my handsome carriage. We take our seats as pristine snowflakes descend and settle on the bodywork's polished ebony. It's a fine welcome and a tremendous relief to be undead once more. The sight of my baleful old vehicle cantering through the small coastal town of Sudavik draws little attention. In previous years, the ominous rumble of hooves and creaking coach springs would herald an unfamiliar guest. But the inhabitants have other issues this year. They've entombed themselves within their homes, battened down their pine window shutters, and laced their thresholds with wreaths of protective herbs, ensuring plenty of garlics on hand. It should flatter me they fear the visit of a malevolent nocturnal predator. However, the precautions aren't for my sole benefit. The coronavirus's arrival has influenced behavior, and the government has enforced a lockdown. Ingvar understood there were unusual circumstances this year, but thought it prudent to interrupt my deep slumbers. Regardless, my initial reaction was one of joy. What better return could I expect than to discover piles of bodies waiting to be devoured? However, it transpires that the Health and Safety Department has issued an edict. Local undertakers are to dispose of the corpses through the crematorium. The local council is determined to sanitize the town and cleanse the region. I hadn't connected the hazy fog lingering above the coastline with the current climate of dread. Sudavik's furnaces are working overtime to dispose of the deceased. The impact on my festive plans is catastrophic. Citizens locked away in their homes until further notice. No bodies languishing on mortuary slabs waiting for morticians, and funerals performed in secrecy with the bereaved attending by Zoom. None of these scenarios bode well for a creature of my particular inclinations. I'll need to redraft Ingvar's commands with caveats that cater to similar events. A do not resuscitate clause should cover matters in the future. As for now, we'll retreat to the mountains, and I'll ponder the options. Iceland's 13 days of celebrations leading up to Christmas are a disaster for all the residents. Children won't be leaving shoes beside their open bedroom windows. There'll be no trolls gifting trick-or-treats this year. The authorities have banned the Yule lads' nightly visits. It's a bleak prospect all round. I have some tough decisions to make as we ascend to my mountaintop fortress. Most years, I'd prowl along local shores, searching for lonesome visitors and lost souls. My spirit descends into a quagmire as I contemplate the prospect of scouring isolated fjords for bilious vagrants and ill-kempt vagabonds. It seems unlikely that I'll quench my thirst this winter. The locals have barricaded themselves in their homes, and according to Ingvar, they're low on stock at the blood bank. As the days trickle past, the wind howls like a wounded banshee, and the ground hardens to rock. The snows gather in drifts, blocking our descent and jeopardizing my strategic movements. Ingvar spends his days grooming the horses, and at night he sips his supplies of Brennivin. Most evenings, he passes out from its effects, having buried himself under a mountain of furs. He knows his services are not required during these hard times, despite being primed to chauffeur me down the mountain on a whim. I've endured centuries of this existence. Life is relative, of course. It isn't a life most know. It's punishment for cheating death. Centuries of endless torture in purgatory. I'm cursed to roam forever, fearful of daylight, and all for a few drops of blood. I suppose it could be worse. There's a contagious disease in the vicinity. I guess it'd just be my luck if I contracted the coronavirus, wouldn't it? A year of coughing and wheezing inside my casket is inconceivable. The thought is most unappealing. And so, it's time to call it a night. Ingvar must enter my coffin until the epidemic's over. Maybe my luck will improve next year. Gertrude Inn. The span of my childhood could be separated into two categories: knowing and not knowing. In fact, everyone in my family, even the adults, could split similarly. Those who knew and those who didn't. Regardless of which category you fell into, everyone knew Grandma had certain proclivities. It was an unspoken thing, yet you felt how heavily it threaded into every conversation and side comment at family gatherings. No one really talked about it, not outright, but it was always there, lingering between the lines. The not knowing part of my childhood wasn't all blissful ignorance. Like the not knowing adults, there were always hints of restlessness whenever we visited Grandma's house of mirrors. That's what everyone called it. Though, to the public, it was Gertrude Inn, a quaint, 3-story, 100-year-old 10-bedroom house operating as a bed and breakfast, run by someone in my family since its inception. Despite how often she smiled, Grandma had this way of putting the house on edge. In a way, the inn was a reflection of her, aged, unique, beautiful, but full of secrets. Everyone walked on eggshells around her, though I'd never witnessed her so much as raise her voice. She smiled warmly, yet her eyes held a cold indifference that felt like she was seeing right through you, guts and all. Gertrude Inn sat in darkness during the day, supposedly to save on electricity. One single window and a shining beam of light brightened the winding corridors on each of the second and third floors. Those single sun rays felt so lively compared to all the shadows, with dust particles dancing in the warmth. My cousins used to make a game of only trying to walk in the sun, lest your legs get snatched by some faceless monster in the dark. There was some speculation that Gertrude Inn was haunted. Creaking floors and dim lighting aside, people reported strange sounds at all hours. Some guests even claimed to see ghosts. The inn had its own cult following amongst supernatural enthusiasts who shared photos of specter light orbs and ghostly apparitions of small girls and old ladies online, because the old lady ghosts looked eerily similar to Grandma. It was widely accepted that it must have been the ghost of a woman in our family tree. But the thing that really made Gertrude Inn feel like a horror movie set was the mirrors. My great-grandfather built them, and over the last 100 years, the walls became filled, nearly every clean inch coated in aluminum reflection. That single sun ray from those lone windows on each floor bounced about, decorating the halls in a disorienting, masking glow. Around the time when I transitioned from not knowing to knowing, I gained a unique fascination with the mirrors. My cousins, aunts, and uncles liked to pretend they didn't exist. When we were delegated to help out around the inn, I'd watch the others stalk the halls ahead of me, carrying buckets of cleaning supplies and fresh sheets, never looking from left to right at the mirrors. Gazes fastened directly ahead, but I couldn't help but look back and forth, short as I was, fascinated by the different heights and styles of the framed mirrors around me, and how different and distorted they made me look, my face contorting and reshaping with each step. I liked to take my time in each bedroom when I cleaned, those walls equally covered in mirrors, making faces at myself and imagining someone else staring back at me. The year after Grandpa died, Grandma became more reclusive. One evening, my parents sent me to track her down, as she'd been missing since lunch, and it was long past dinner. Up to the third floor, past the guest rooms, the further along I crept, the more the walls narrowed. A single sconce poorly illuminated the dark at each turn, but that one small light bounced off the mirrors, casting a dizzying glimmer. My reflection echoed all the way down the hallway, thousands of me watching back. Finally, I approached her room, and my hand shook as it clasped the vintage crystal doorknob, which spun loosely like it needed a repair, then pushed my way in. Her bed was made, complete with a crocheted white doily adorning an old quilt. Another draped over a little red table, and a lit desk lamp that glowed beneath the stained glass lampshade. A soft humming caught my attention, but I couldn't tell where the sound was coming from. She wasn't anywhere in the tiny bedroom. I circled the space, trying to locate the source. The humming grew louder as I neared the armoire. I wouldn't consider myself a brave kid, but my curiosity was piqued, and no matter how hard my little heart rattled in my chest, or how sweaty my shaky hands felt, I pressed my ear to the closet door and listened. I gripped the metal handle, and the moment the door cracked open, Grandma's humming grew louder. Shoving dresses and shirts on coat hangers to the side, I stepped through a hole at the back of the closet. "Grandma?" I called out. The humming paused, then picked up again. I kept climbing, stepping over mounds of boots and boxes, until I emerged into the brightest lit room in the house, and there were mirrors everywhere. "Hello, darling Mercy." Grandma gestured for me to join her, not the least bit surprised to see me. "What is all this?" I looked around in wonder at all the beautiful, ornate mirrors, some framed in elaborate gold filigree, some in thick, knotted wood. Grandma stood in front of 3 large glass panels, resting on a massive, open-backed easel. Paintbrush in hand, she elbowed me playfully. "How'd you find me, little bug? Is this how you make mirrors?" I looked around in wonder. Grandma didn't answer. Her humming resumed, as did her painting. I glanced down at the table and saw 3 identical empty frames, all silver, with intricate faces painted along the edges. The faces resembled cherubs, but their teeth looked more like fangs. Smiles distorted. I looked back at the glass she was painting and noticed something odd. "Grandma, how come you can see through these mirrors?" Her humming continued as she painted a silver metallic sheen on the glass. On one side, the silver allowed your reflection to stare back, but on the other, the glass was see-through, like a window. I wasn't a mirror expert, not like Grandma or my great-grandpa, but I broke a mirror when I was cleaning once, and I remember the backside being dark. You couldn't see through it like you could these. Grandma kept humming, and I was hungry, and that room creeped me out. So I shrugged and waved goodbye, reminding her my mom was looking for her. I dismissed the strange room, letting it remain tucked away in the recesses of my memory. Then, one weekend, I got assigned to room cleaning. We all took turns helping out at the inn, but it was more of a chore as I got older. The secrets of the old house held less interest for me. That is until I took a bottle of Windex into a room on the 2nd floor, spraying down one of the many mirrors, and I recognized the silver metal frame, intricately painted cherubs with fang-like teeth, and distorted smiles staring back at me, the one-way mirrors. I tried to pull the mirror off the wall, to look behind it, but was surprised to find it securely stuck. No matter how hard I tried to pull it off, it wouldn't budge. A cold chill ran down my spine as I recalled the secret room. That was when I realized there were two kinds of people in this family: those who knew and those who didn't. Grandma passed away a couple of years later, but still, I kept her secrets. My family argued about who would take care of the inn. It had been in our family for so long, no one wanted to give it up. But no one wanted to take responsibility for it either. Finally, they came to a compromise and decided to share the duties. So, one of our families would move into the inn each season to take care of the guests and keep Gertrude Inn up and running until someone stepped up and decided to take over the House of Mirrors. It was summer when it was our turn. Mom and Dad claimed a bedroom on the first floor, and though no one wanted to sleep in Grandma's old room, I claimed it greedily. Gertrude Inn had a presence, a sort of sentient awareness, like you could feel her breathing. She tensed and held her breath, and so did I when I crept into the armoire that first night. I palmed the back of the old wardrobe, my hands sweaty as I searched for the secret knob. When I entered Grandma's secret room, it was pitch black. I stumbled around in the dark, seeking out the hanging lamps I remembered briefly from my only previous visit. But in my search, as my hands felt along the walls, I found another doorknob. My heart racing, I slowly twisted the tiny metal handle, the creaking sound like a thunderclap, considering the height of my nerves. My foot padded out ahead, testing the floor, and as both hands pressed against the narrow walls, I discovered a light switch. Though the light cast was dim, like everything else at Gertrude Inn, it was enough. Slowly, I stumbled into the corridor, merely 3 feet wide, between the bedrooms, floors creaking loudly beneath my bare feet. And then I watched in horror through the backs of the mirrors as guests slept the night away. I held every gasp and breath as my brain tried desperately to comprehend what I saw. A shriek tore out of my throat when I came upon a couple having sex, and the man stopped mid-thrust to whisper, "Did you hear that?" to his partner. My hand clasped over my mouth, terrified they'd know I was there, know what hid behind the mirrors. I turned around and ran back to the secret room. I turned off the light, banged my knee against a table in my rush to escape, and when I returned to my new bedroom, I stared at the armoire in screaming silence until the sun came up. It took hours to calm my racing heart, and in that time, I thought back to every interaction I'd ever had with my grandma. All the puzzle pieces and bits of memory I tucked away, slowly clicking into place. Walking over to a mirror, I stared back at my reflection until I no longer felt scared or uncomfortable. The following morning at breakfast, I watched my parents, not knowing, move around the kitchen in blissful ignorance, shaking cereal into bowls and discussing their days over morning coffee. "Mercy, you feeling okay?" Mom placed the back of her hand over my forehead, frowning. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, I'm good. Must have been a little weird to sleep in Grandma's room last night. No one would blame you if you decided to stay in another room. We can rework that one into a guest room." "No." Their eyes widen at my reaction. "Sorry. No, I'm good. Actually, it made me feel closer to her. And, I was thinking, she showed me once how to make the mirrors. I think I'd like to take it over. Learn the family business." I shrugged and dug my spoon into the milky cereal, ignoring my parents' tight smiles. They don't want me to become like Grandma, even if they don't know precisely why. What I do know is that Gertrude Inn breathes for me, and I'll keep her secrets, maybe make a few of my own.